The 15th of June, 1902, Volume 4. Love is not an attribute of God, but his very nature. The soul who truly loves Jesus cannot become lost. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus transported me outside of myself and told me, "My daughter, all virtues can be said to be my qualities and my attributes. But love cannot be called an attribute of mine, but rather my very nature. So all virtues form my throne and my qualities, but love forms my very self." On hearing this, I remembered that the day before I had told a person who feared about the uncertainty of salvation that one who truly loves Jesus Christ can be sure of being saved. To me, I believe it is impossible that our Lord would move away from himself a soul who loves him with all her heart. Therefore, let us think of loving him, and we will have our salvation in hand. So I asked loving Jesus whether by saying this I had spoken incorrectly, and he added, "My beloved, you say that with reason, because love has this of its own. It forms one object out of two, one will out of two. So the soul who loves me forms one single thing with me, one single will. How can she then be separated from me? More so, since my nature is love, and wherever it finds a few sparks of love in the human nature, immediately it unites them to the eternal love. Therefore, just as it is impossible to form two souls out of one soul, or two bodies out of one body, so it is impossible for one who truly loves me to become lost." End of the reading. The 15th of June, 1903, Volume 5. How the creature can preserve the creative, redemptive, and sanctifying works of God within herself. As I was in my usual state, I don't know how, I saw my adorable Jesus inside my eye. I was surprised, and he told me, "My daughter, one who makes use of her senses to offend me deforms my image within herself. Therefore sin gives death to the soul, not because she really dies, but because it gives death to everything which is divine. If then she uses her senses to glorify me, I can say, 'You are my eye, my hearing, my mouth, my hands, and my feet.' By this she preserves my creative work within herself, and if to her glorifying me she adds suffering, satisfying and repairing for others, she preserves within herself my redemptive work. And as she perfects these works of mine within herself, my sanctifying work rises again, sanctifying everything and preserving it within her soul. In fact, for everything I have done in the creative, redemptive, and sanctifying works, I have transfused in the soul a participation in my very operating. However, everything is in whether the soul corresponds to my work." End of the reading. The 15th of June, 1904, Volume 6. The creature is nothing but a little container filled with a dose of all the divine particles. As I was in my usual state, he came for just a little and told me, "My beloved daughter, the creature is so dear to me, and I love her so much, that if the creature could comprehend it, her heart would burst with love. This is so true that in creating her, I made her as nothing but a little container filled with a dose of all the divine particles in such a way that all of my being, attributes, virtues, perfections, the soul contains many little particles according to the capacity given to her by me, and this so that I might find in her as many little notes corresponding to my notes, and thus be able to delight perfectly and to play with her. Now, when the soul deals with materials and lets them enter into this little container filled with the divine, something of the divine flows outside of it, and something of matter enters to take its place. What affront the divinity receives, and what harm for the soul. How much attention it takes so as not to let material things enter inside, if by necessity she has to deal with them. You, my daughter, be attentive. Otherwise, if I see anything which is not divine in you, I will not make myself seen any more. End of the reading. The 15th of June, 1906, Volume 7, the whole of the divine life receives life from love. After I struggled very much, my blessed Jesus came in passing and told me, "My daughter, it can be said that the whole of the divine life receives life from love. Love makes it generate. Love makes it produce. Love makes it create. Love makes it preserve and gives continuous life to all of its operations. So if it did not have love, it would not operate, or it would have no life. Now creatures are nothing but sparks come out of the great fire of love, God, and their life receives life and the attitude to operate from this spark. So the human life also receives life from love. However, not everyone uses it to love and to operate what is beautiful, what is good, the all, but they transform this spark, some into love of self, some into love of creatures, some of riches, and some even of beasts, to the higher sorrow of their Creator, who, having unleashed these sparks from his great fire, yearns to receive them all back into himself once again, expanded like as many images of his divine life. But few are those who correspond to the imitation of their Creator. Therefore, my beloved, love me, and let even your breath be a continuous act of love for me, that a small fire may form from this spark, so as to give vent to the love of your Creator. End of the reading. The 15th of June, 1916, Volume 11. In the divine will, everything is complete. The most powerful prayers over the heart of Jesus, and those which move him the most, are to clothe oneself with all that he himself did and suffered. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus came. He transformed me completely in him, and then he told me, "My daughter, pour yourself into my will to make complete reparations for me. My love feels an irresistible need for them. After so many offences of creatures, it wants one at least who, placing herself between me and them, would give me complete reparations, love for all, and would snatch from me graces for all. But you can do this only in my will, in which you will find me and all creatures. Oh, with what yearnings am I waiting for you to enter into my will, to be able to find in you the satisfactions and the reparations of all. Only in my will you find all things in act, because I am engine, actor, and spectator of everything." Now, while he was saying this, I poured myself into his will, but who can say what I saw? I was in contact with every thought of creature, the life of which came from God, and I, in his will, multiplied myself in each thought, and with the sanctity of his will, I repaired everything. I had a thank you for all, a love for all. Then I multiplied myself in the gazes, in the works, in the words, and in everything else. But who can say what was happening? I lack the terms, and maybe the very angelic tongues would stammer. Therefore I stop here. So I spent the whole night with Jesus in his will. Then I felt the Queen Mama near me, and she told me, "My daughter, pray." And I, "My Mama, let us pray together, for by myself I don't know how to pray." And she added, "The most powerful prayers over the heart of my son, and those which move him the most, are for the creature to clothe herself with everything he himself did and suffered, since he gave everything as gift to the creature. Therefore, my daughter, surround your head with the thorns of Jesus. Bead your eyes with his tears. Impregnate your tongue with his bitterness. Clothe your soul with his blood. Adorn yourself with his wounds. Pierce your hands and feet with his nails. And like another Christ, present yourself before his divine majesty. This sight will move him in such a way that he will not be able to deny anything to the soul who is clothed with his own insignia. But, oh, how little do creatures know how to make use of the gifts which my Son gave them. These were my prayers upon earth, and these are my prayers in heaven." So together we clothed ourselves with the insignia of Jesus, and together we presented ourselves before the divine throne. This moved all. The angels made way for us and remained as though surprised. I thanked Mama, and I found myself inside myself. End of the reading. The 15th of June 1922, Volume 14. The divine heartbeat is the little cell of the soul who lives in the divine will and makes everything harmonize within the creature. Continuing in my usual state, I was thinking about the holy will of God, and while I was fusing myself in it, my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, my eternal will was the central point of my life from the first act of my conception up to its last breath. It preceded me, it accompanied me, becoming the life of my act, and it followed me, enclosing my act in the eternal sphere of my will, from which it could find no way out. And since my eternal will was immense, there was not one point which it would not encircle, nor generation in which it would not dominate. Therefore it was as though natural for it to form my acts and to multiply them for all, as if they were for one alone. An individual can give only what he possesses. As much power as he may contain, he cannot give more than what he possesses. Now my will possessed the immensity, the power of the multiplication of acts into as many as it wanted, the eternity in which it overwhelmed all things present to everyone, as in the beginning of all things, so until the end. This is why, from the first moment of my conception, the power of my will formed as many conceptions for as many creatures as would come to existence. It multiplied my words, thoughts, works, and steps, and extended them from the first to the last man. The power of the eternal volition converted my blood, my pains, into immense seas, of which all could avail themselves. If it wasn't for the prodigy of the supreme will, my very redemption would have been individual, circumscribed, and only for a few generations. Now my will has not changed. What it was, it is, and will be. More so, since I myself came upon earth, and I came to tie once again the divine will to the human. And for the soul who does not escape from this tie, and places herself at the mercy of the divine will, letting herself be preceded, accompanied, and followed, enclosing her act in my volition, that which happened to me happens to her. See, as you were fusing your thoughts, your words, your works, your reparations, your little love in my will, I extended them, I multiplied them, and they became antidote for each thought and for each work, reparation for each offence, and love for each love that is due to me. And if this does not happen, it is the human will's fault, which, not abandoning itself completely prey to the divine will, does not take everything, nor can it give itself to everyone. So it feels the sensations of what is human, which make it unhappy, circumscribe it, impoverish it, and render it incomplete. This is the reason for all my interest, that your will live in mine, and that you understand well what it means to live in it, as much as it is possible for a creature. Because if you do this, you will have obtained everything and will give me everything. Having said this, he disappeared, but later he came back again and made himself seen, all wounded. Those wounds formed many little cells in which Jesus called the souls to enclose them and keep them safe. I said to him, "My love, what about my little cell? Where is it, that I may enclose myself in it, never to go out again?" And Jesus, "My daughter, for you there are no little cells in my body, because one who lives in my will cannot live in one compartment of mine, but must live in the heartbeat of my heart. The heartbeat is the centre and the life of the human body. If the heartbeat ceases, life ceases. The heartbeat maintains the blood circulation, the heat, the breathing, and therefore the strength and the activity of the members. If the heartbeat is not regular, all the human faculties are in disorder. Even the intelligence loses liveliness, ingenuity, and the fullness of the intellectual light. In fact, in creating man, I placed a special sound in his heart, to which I bound the eternal harmony, in such a way that if the heartbeat is healthy, everything is harmony in the creature. Now my will is the heartbeat in the creature. If it palpitates, sanctity harmonizes, the virtues harmonize, she harmonizes between heaven and earth. Her harmony extends up to the sacrosanct Trinity. This is why for you there is my heartbeat, that offers itself as a little cell in order to enclose you in it, and so that palpitating with one single heartbeat, you may harmonize between heaven and earth, circulate in the past, in the present, and in the future, and be present in everything, you circulating in me and I in you. End of the reading. The 15th of June, 1923, Volume 15. In what does perfect charity consist? Continuing in my usual state, I was praying that my always lovable Jesus would deign to come to visit my poor soul. And he, all goodness, came and made himself seen as he kept touching me all over with his holy hand. And in touching me, he would leave a light as mark at each point where he touched me. After this, Jesus disappeared, and my confessor came, who is now deceased. And he told me, I too want to touch you at those points where our Lord touched you. Almost not wanting, but as though lacking the strength to oppose, I let him do it. But as he was doing it, that light which Jesus had left in touching me was communicated to him, and he remained as though invested with so much light for as many touches as he gave me, always at the same points where Jesus had touched me. I remained surprised, and the confessor told me, "The Lord has sent me to give me the recompense of the merit I acquired when I would come to you to do you charity and would act upon you. Now this has turned for me into light of eternal glory." Then afterwards my second confessor came, who is also deceased, and he told me, "Tell me what Jesus said to you. I want to hear it, so that the light of the divine truths may unite to the many lights of the truths which the Lord spoke to you, and with which, in hearing them from you when I was alive, I remained as though impregnated. Now the Lord has sent me to confirm for me the recompense of the merit I acquired by wanting to hear those truths. If you knew what it means to hear the divine truths, what charm of light they contain, such that the sun would remain eclipsed, and the good they bring to the one who speaks them and to the one who listens to them, you would compete, you, in speaking them, and the one who feels the duty to do so in listening to them. Therefore, hurry, tell me, what did he say to you?" And I, remembering that Jesus had told me what charity means, said that to him. My words turned into light and invested him. Then, all content, he disappeared from me. Now I will say what Jesus had told me about charity. My daughter, with its power, true charity can convert all things into love. Look at fire, all varieties of wood, and any other thing. It converts all into fire. And if it did not have the power to convert everything into fire, it could not be given the name of true fire. The same for the soul. If she does not convert all things into love, both supernatural and natural things, joys and bitternesses, and everything that surrounds her, she cannot be said to possess true charity. Now, as he was saying this, he let many flames come out of his most holy heart, which filled heaven and earth, and then, uniting together, formed one single flame. And he added, "Continuous flames of love come from my heart, and to some they bring love, to some pain, to some light, to some strength, and so on. And because they come from the centre of the furnace of my love, even though they do different offices, since one is the purpose, to send love to the creature, they are all flames which, uniting together, form one single flame. The same for the creature. Even if she does different things, the purpose must be love, so as to be able to make of her actions as many little flames which, uniting together, will form the great flame that will burn everything and will transform her completely into me. Otherwise, she will not possess true charity." End of the reading. The 15th of June, 1926, Volume 19. How the Nothing is frightened and trembles under the All. How the Virgin loves her celestial children and performs in heaven her office of mother. Just as knowledge gave life to the fruits of redemption, so it will give life to the fruits of the divine will. I was feeling all full of defects, especially because of the great repugnance I feel when it comes to writing of the intimate things between myself and our Lord. The weight I feel is so great that I don't know what I would do in order not to do it. And since the obedience of the one who is above me imposes itself, though I would like to oppose myself and tell my reasons for not doing it, I always end up surrendering. So, having gone through a similar contrast, I felt full of defects and totally bad. Therefore, as blessed Jesus came, I told him, Jesus, my life, have pity on me. Look at how full of defects I am, and how much badness there is in me. And he, all goodness and tenderness, told me, my daughter, do not fear. I am here, watching over you and keeping your soul in custody, so that not even the slightest sin may enter into your soul. And where you or others see defects and badnesses, I find none. Rather, I see that your nothing feels the weight of the all. In fact, the more I elevate you intimately to me, and I make known to you what the all wants to do with your nothing, the more you feel your nothingness, and almost frightened and crushed under the all, you would want to escape from manifesting, and even more from writing on paper, that which the all wants to make of this nothing of yours. More so, since as much reluctance as you feel, I always win and make you do what I want. This happened also to my celestial mamma when she was told, I hail you, Mary, full of grace, you will conceive the Son of God. On hearing this, she was frightened, she trembled and said, how can this happen? But she ended up saying, fiat mihi, secundum verbum tuum. She felt the weight of the all over her nothing, and naturally she was frightened. So when I manifest to you what I want to do with you, and your nothing is frightened, I see the fright of the sovereign queen being repeated, and compassionating you, I lift your nothing, I strengthen it, that it may endure sustaining the all. Therefore do not be concerned about this, but rather think of letting the all operate in you. Then after this I was doing my usual acts in the supreme volition, embracing everything and everyone, to be able to bring to my Creator the acts of all as one single act. Now, while I was doing this, my sweet Jesus came out from within my interior, and embracing everything together with me, he united himself with me, doing what I was doing. Then all love, he told me, my daughter, I love so much the acts done in my will, that I myself take on the commitment to keep them in custody in the unity of my supreme light, in such a way as to render them inseparable from me and from my own acts. If you knew how jealous I am of these acts, how they glorify me in a holy divine way, it can be said that each of these acts is a new feast that starts in the whole creation and in the whole celestial fatherland. Flowing in my will like a ray of light, these acts bring new joys, feasts, and happinesses wherever my will is. These acts are the joys, the feast, and the happiness that the creature forms in the will of her Creator. And do you think it is trivial that the creature can form and bring feast, joy, and happiness to her Creator, and wherever our will reigns? The same happened with my Queen Mama, as she always operated in the unity of the light of the Supreme Will. All of her acts, her office of mother, her rights of queen, remained inseparable from her Creator, so much so that when the divinity unleashes the acts of beatitude to make the whole celestial fatherland happy, it unleashes them, with them, all the acts of the celestial Mama. So all the saints feel invested not only with our joys and beatitudes, but also with the maternal love of their mother, with the glory of their queen, and with all of her acts converted into joys for the whole celestial Jerusalem. Every fibre of her maternal heart loves all the children of the celestial fatherland with love of mother, and she shares her joys of mother and her glory of queen with everyone. So on earth, she was mother of love and of sorrow for her children, who cost her so much as the life of her Son God. And by virtue of the unity of the light of the supreme will which she possessed, her acts remained inseparable from ours, while in heaven she is mother of love, of joys, and of glory for all of her celestial children. So all the saints have greater love, more glory, and more joys by virtue of their mother and sovereign queen. Therefore I love so much one who lives in my will that I lower myself to her, to do what she does together with her, to raise her up to the bosom of the Eternal One, to render her act one with her Creator. After this, I remained thinking about the blessed will of God, and many things wandered through my mind, which it is not necessary to put on paper, and my sweet Jesus coming back at it. My daughter, the triumph of my will is connected with creation and with redemption. It can be called one single triumph. Since a woman was the cause of the ruin of man, it was a virgin woman that, after 4,000 years, letting my humanity, united to the eternal Word, be born of her, provided the remedy for the ruin of fallen man. Now that the remedy for man is formed, is my will alone to be left without its full completion, while it has its prime act both in creation and in redemption? This is why, after 2,000 years more, we have chosen another virgin as the triumph and fulfillment of our will. Forming its kingdom in your soul and making itself known with its knowledge, my will has given you its hand to raise you to living in the unity of its light, so that you may form your life in it, and the divine will may form its life in you. And having formed its dominion in you, it forms the connection through which to communicate its dominion to the other creatures. And just as in descending into the womb of the Immaculate Virgin, the Word did not remain in it for her alone, but I formed the connection of communication for creatures, and I gave myself to all and as a remedy for all. The same will happen with you. By having formed its kingdom in you, my supreme volition forms the communications to make itself known to creatures. Everything I have told you about it, the knowledges I have given you, the way and the how of living in my will, my making known to you how it wants, how it yearns for man to return into its arms and enter once again into his origin of the eternal will from which he came, are all ways of communication, bonds of love, transmission of light, a breeze, to make them breathe the air of my will, and therefore disinfect the air of the human will, and a mighty wind to conquer and uproot the most rebellious wills. Each knowledge I have given you about my will contains a creative power, and everything is in letting these knowledges out, because the power they contain will know how to breach its way into the hearts, to submit them to its dominion. Did the same perhaps not happen in redemption? As long as I remained with my Mama in the hidden life of Nazareth, everything was silent around me, although this hiddenness of mine, together with the Celestial Queen, served in an admirable way to form the substance of redemption, and so that I might announce myself as being already present in their midst. But when did its fruits communicate themselves in the midst of the peoples? When I went out in public, made myself known, and spoke to them with the power of my creative word. And as all that I did and said spread and keeps spreading still now in the midst of the peoples, then did the fruits of redemption have their effects and still do. Indeed, my daughter, if no one had known that I had come upon earth, redemption would have been something dead and without effects for creatures. So knowledge gave life to its fruits. The same will be for my will. Knowledge will give life to the fruits of my will. This is why I wanted to renew what I did in redemption, choosing another virgin, remaining hidden with her for 40 years and more, segregating her from everyone as if in a new Nazareth, to be free with her to tell the whole story, the prodigies and the goods contained in it, so as to be able to form the life of my will in you. And just as I chose Saint Joseph to be together with me and my mamma as our cooperator, tutor, and vigil sentry for me and for the Sovereign Queen, in the same way I have placed near you the vigil assistants of my ministers as cooperators, tutors, and depositories of the knowledges, goods, and prodigies contained in my will. And since my will wants to establish its kingdom in the midst of peoples, through you I want to deposit this celestial doctrine in my ministers as my new apostles, so that first I may form with them the link of connection with my will, and then they may transmit it into the midst of peoples. If it were not so, or were not to be so, I would not have insisted so much on having you write, nor would I have permitted the daily coming of the priest, but I would have left all my work between me and you. Therefore be attentive and leave me free to do what I want in you. Now who can say how confused I remained at this speaking of Jesus? I remained mute, and from the depth of my heart I repeated, Fiat, Fiat, Fiat. The 15th of June, 1933, volume 32. The intention forms the life of the action. It forms the veil to hide the divine action, the hidden actor. My poor mind is always occupied by the divine fiat that not only wants to make itself life, but also nourishment, because it is not enough to have life without having enough to eat. One would die of hunger. This is why very often he gives me the predilected and celestial nourishment of some other truths that regard his volition, because I feel myself dying of hunger. And my lovable Jesus, because he himself wants and gives me this hunger, in visiting my little soul told me, my daughter, your desire to be nourished by my nourishing word wounds my heart, and I, wounded, run to you in order to give you my divine nourishment that only I can give you. My word is life and forms the divine life in you. It is light and illuminates you, and the illuminating virtue remains in you that always gives you light. It is fire, and it makes the heat rise in you. It is food, and it nourishes you. Now you must know that I do not look at the external action of the creature, but at the intention that forms the life of the action. The intention is as the soul of the action. The action is as the veil of the intention. It happens like the soul to the body. that it is not the body that thinks, that speaks, that palpitates, that works and that walks, but the soul that gives life to the thought, to the word, to the motion, so that the body is the veil of the soul, that while it covers the soul and acts as bearer for it, yet the vital part, the action, the step, is of the soul. Such is the intention, true life of the actions. Now, if you call my divine will as life of your mind, as heartbeat of your heart, as action of your hands, and so forth, you will form the life of the intelligence of my will in your mind, the life of its actions in your hands, its divine step in your feet, in a way that everything that you do will serve as veil for the divine life that you have formed in the interior of your acts with your intention. But what is this intention? It is your will that, appealing to mine, empties itself and forms the void in one's act in order to give the place of action to my will. And acting as veil, it hides even in the most ordinary and natural actions the extraordinary action of a God, such that from the outside common actions are seen. But if one removes the veil of the human volition, one finds the operating virtue of the divine action enclosed. And this forms the sanctity of the creature, not the diversity of actions, not the works that make noise, no, but common life, the necessary actions of life, of which the creature cannot do without. They are all veils that can hide our will and make itself filled where God abases himself in order to act as hidden actor of his divine actions. And as the body veils the soul, so the will veils God. It hides him, and by means of her ordinary actions, forms the chain of the extraordinary actions of God in her soul. Therefore be attentive, call my will in everything you do, and it will never deny you its act, in order to form in you, for as much as it is possible for a creature, the fullness of its sanctity. End of the reading. There are no more readings today.